I'm just not that kind of personality. I actually tell you what I feel. And if you get me angry, I'm going to tell you all the truth. So, some folk go to lying when they get angry. I'm the complete opposite. I'm going to tell you all the stuff that you didn't know about. I'm going to talk about your mama, your daddy, everybody else. And all the stuff that you didn't know, I'm going to tell you about it, because now you done got me upset. But I say those things, say, y'all pray my strength in the Lord. But I'm certainly honored, amen, that my friend and brother, Pastor John Myers, is here today. Amen. Thank God for him. Amen. Tremendous person, and again, a great friend. And John and I, he's almost old enough to be my father, but we act like buddies, and so I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And he wanted to come out and hang out tonight and be in the service, and he's here. And he's here. And so, and then of course I cannot help but saying I'm glad that Bishop already mentioned my dad is here with me tonight. I gave him short notice. I called him maybe about 35 minutes before I was ready to leave. I said, listen, you want to come with me to Jersey tonight? He said, yeah, why not? I said, all right. And so he said, I'll be ready when you get here. And so he's here. He's here. Amen. Now last week, and I'm almost done, but last week I mentioned that my brother brought me here because I'm still praying over bridges. They require much faith. Y'all ain't hear me. I'm praying for the anointing of the bridge. And so my brother brought me, he's here again. Now last week I told you he was outside finishing up some chicken. I didn't realize it was going to take him the whole service. Now he's out there today, and I can't say that he's eating chicken today. But he may drop in, I don't know. But he got me here nonetheless. And so I'm honored by him also. And certainly to all of you precious people of the Lord, we thank God for you and being here with us on this afternoon or this evening. I am not going to keep you long. As I said, I don't do well with the heat. I just don't. And so I don't want to start shedding pounds while I'm sitting up here. What's that liquid? That's him. I'm not going to let that happen. So I want to go back into what we started on last week, and I'm not going to use the same lesson. I'm going to move on further. I hope that what you had last week, you were able to use it, and by all means, study it and read it and muse over it, because it's important for our Christian development. And that's what we're here for. Bishop wants me and assigned me the responsibility of dealing with comparative religions. The last time I was here, about a year or two ago, I think it was, we dealt with different religious groups. But I became more inclined this time around to deal with the philosophical thinking of the Christian church. It's important, and I say it's important for the simplest of reasons, is because we do things and we don't understand why we do what we do. And without understanding, the people perish. Because you lose the incentive, you lose the passion, you lose the thing that ultimately causes you to have the desire to come. Why in the world would you be sitting in a hot room on a Tuesday night when you can be sitting in an air-conditioned room somewhere else watching your favorite program? It's because there's a hunger and there's a thirst. There is a desire for knowledge and insight. And I think that you should appreciate the favor of God upon you. And I speak specifically to those of you who have gathered, because there are others who have the opportunity to come and said, I'm not coming. There's Vincent. Oh, no, he went in the back. All right, no. So, there is a desire to know God's word from those who are interested in truth. Yeah. Emotionalizing you, exciting you, is only as good as you're in the room. Once you leave the room, all of that dissipates. There's nothing there to hold you. I think we said last week, that it's important to have celebration, but what we need is edification. We need to do what Peter said, to grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior. So as I said, and I say in my local assembly, and I say just about anywhere I go, the bishop is a tremendous preacher. I know he is. Pastor Myers is a tremendous preacher. There's a bunch of preachers in here, I'm certain. And I'm certain they can shout you when you need it. And I can do the same if necessary. But I realize that it's not enough to shout and dance. I need you to walk away with something. Amen. I need you to walk away with something. And the thing that I want you to walk away with is a greater understanding. Something that's going to bring you into a deeper fellowship. Something that's going to cause you to be able to say, okay, I can't, because we'll never be able to conceptualize God in totality. You'll never be able to do it. So don't even try. The disciples asked the question, what manner of man is this? That even when he speaks, even the winds listen to him. We can't put God in a box. We can't conceptualize God. We can't shape him and form him into what we want. So the only thing we're left to do is walk by faith. And that means then that faith that requires me to trust whatever his word has already said. Now the benefit of his word is understanding it. Because if I don't understand it and put it in its proper channels and put it in its proper concept, then I'm still walking unenlightened. So the words mean absolutely nothing to me if I read them and I don't read with understanding. So I realize that the challenge for the believer today is to be able to get a closer walk, not just through celebration, but through edification, education. And so I want to argue and I say argue, I use it as a premise of discussion. I wanted to argue the philosophical concepts of our theological stance. Don't get nervous. I just want to be able to argue those positions with us so that we can understand partially what we're up against when we go out. Nobody outside is going to have mercy on you when it comes time for you to explain your faith. They're going to tell you, I thought you believed in Jesus. Well, then why did this happen? I thought you said you trusted God. So why is this going on? And if you can't give them an answer, if you can't bring them to at least a place of contemplation, not necessarily a commitment to understanding, because some people just don't know. The scripture says one man plants, another man waters, but it's God who gives increase. And so every once in a while, the goal of the teacher, the goal of the preacher is to drop a seed. And hopefully that seed will germinate and someone else will come and water it and later on. And then eventually, some weeks, some months, some years down the road, you'll come into a new understanding that you did not have in times past. Anybody can understand that? Have you ever heard something in church before and you said, you know what, I've heard that scripture many times before, but it didn't make sense until today? Yes, because that's how the word is designed. It's designed because we grow in knowledge. So what we're going to talk about today is last week we dealt with universalism from the concepts of understanding what the universal concept of our relationship with the Lord is. This week we're dealing with another ism, which is relativism, is what we're going to do. We're going to deal with. I'm going to keep it short. I promise you I will not stay long. But I have a watch. So there it is. All right. I want to deal with this theme because we live in a world today where we no longer live by absolutes. There are no absolutes any longer. I watched a show some weeks back, and there's a redefining, because the sexual mores of our present society is so prolific at this point that we're challenged almost on every hand. I've actually watched a show where they're trying to redefine gender. There's no longer male or female. It's now whatever you think you are. And listen, it's not just a statement, but these things are actually going on people's birth certificates. There's no longer male or female. It's whatever I think that I am. That's what's going to be recorded. Now, that deals with the issue of absolutes. The Bible says in the beginning he made them male and female. He called them man, but they were made male and female. I'm not going to go on a tirade against homosexuality. That's not what I'm dealing with. What I'm dealing with is the concepts that have developed in our greater society as to how we see things that we one time saw as staples and standards on how we live and understood life. So now, my grandson was in a school earlier part of this year, and I walked in the classroom. He's a little fellow. He's only 4 years old. I walked in the classroom to get him as it was time to pick him up. And my grandson had a tutu on. I was like, why is my grandson in a dress? So the lady said to me, the person who was in charge, she said, well, they let the kids go into the chest and they pulled out whatever they wanted. And he happened to pull that dress out. I said, so I ask you again, why is my grandson in a dress? She said, because that's what he chose. I said, lady, I'm going to say it one more time. Why is my grandson in a dress? She said, Mr. Holloway, here's how it works in our modern culture. She said, we don't tell children what they should be. We let them choose what they want to be. I was like, but my grandson's in a dress. She said, yes, I understand that. I said, Cameron, take the dress off. She said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And I said, pardon me? She said, don't do that. I said, why? She said, because if you force it away from him, you'll make him later on move towards it. I said, not in my home, he's not. I said, boys in my home wear pants. Even 4-year-old boys. And she said, well, you're not up with the times. I said, darling, I don't guess I'll ever be. Because my grandson does not need to have a dress on. And she didn't really appreciate my perspective on it, but I didn't really care. Because he comes up in my home, not here. And I told her, I said, that's not our value system. We don't live by those values. And I don't want you to convolute his mind as to what thinking who he is and what he should be. Four years old. 4 years old. And so this is the problem that we run up against in our modern culture, because everything, there are no longer absolutes are being eroded from our societal thinking, and we now move into a course of relativism, which is simply another way of saying whatever I think, I am. Whatever I feel must be. Now, I don't even have to go too far to tell you how bad that has gotten, because you see it every day. When a child can take a parent to court for chastising them, and then the court would actually administrate over such a chastisement and dare tell the family, the mother or the father, you have no right. We got some problems. And it's not outside, it's inside the church also. And so we have to learn to recognize these things and see them for what exactly they are, and yes, stand up to them as an issue.
Amen, amen, amen.
So let's look at this real quick. And again, we're going to run through it. Don't worry, we're not going to go through all these pages. We're going to go through a couple of them, and you all going to take the rest of it, and hopefully next week read through it and have fun and go for it. Let me just say my influence in this lesson today is a pastor by the name of John Piper. The fellow by the name of John Piper, tremendous Bible scholar. He is the person that I sort of have taken this position from in terms of what my teaching is on in this course. I'm confident and comfortable with what he offers us in the realms of theology. And so this is the thing that I want us to be dealing with as we look at the challenge of relativism. Let me just go ahead and say, as it relates to a dictionary definition of relativism, it is the doctrine that, this is the teaching of it, the doctrine, I don't think this is on your papers, but it's the doctrine that knowledge, truth, and morality exists in relationship to culture, society, or historical context, and are not absolutes. So in a nutshell, what it's saying is, depending on where you come from, whatever the morality of your circle is, then that's the truth you live by. Now, if all of us, how many of you have ever heard somebody tell you, well, that's not my world, that's your world? That's not in my world, that's in your world. We all live in the same world. We don't live in different worlds. We all are in one world. And in one world, yes, there are things that create contradictions for us, things that create anomalies as related to how we see and preview and understand certain things culturally. It's not unique that in an African-American church, music plays a major part of what we do. Why? Because our ancestry is just from that perspective. So it's not so unusual that we do that. But then at the same time, culturally speaking, if you brought a person in here, a Caucasian or whatever other type of person you bring in, and on a Sunday morning when you got reared up and you got your shouting shoes on, and he comes in and stands flat-foot and talks to you with a monotone voice, very low, very particular, very specific, you're going to be scratching your head and you're going to be looking at Bishop like, what is that? What's happening here? Some of it may very well be cultural, because they don't necessarily emote the way that we emote in certain, because our form of worship is a unique type of worship. Some of them have emulated it. The Catholic Church now they shout, they speak in tongues. They do. Yeah, they speak in tongues now. They shout. They fall out in the spirit, as we call it, as it's been called. Why? Because they said, look, whatever's happening over there with them, it works for them. That's bringing on. That's true. That's bringing on our side. The Pope was telling them, y'all go to some of them Pentecostal churches, sit up under them folk and let them fall all over you a little bit. Learn how they do what they do. And that's not a joke. It's very real, because they wanted to experience what they understood was, what they thought was an experience at least, and they wanted to apply it to their relationship or fellowship and their concepts of God. They wanted to do the same thing. So what we're looking at is they're bringing in their minds two worlds together. Culture, society, historical context is the things that we look at in terms of how we view the church. Why do we do what we do is the question you should always ask yourself. Don't be frightened by the question. Don't be frightened by the answer. The Bible said it clearly, get understanding. That's what we're called to do. We are called to understand. All right? Growing up, I came up in a Pentecostal church, you know, we shout. I was a baby. The woman grabbed me, and I was a baby. She was shouting with me in her hands. I remember that. I do remember, y'all, some of y'all may not know about this stuff, but there used to be a time in the Pentecostal church we used to purge. Anybody remember that? That was a frightening experience for me. Because they would put paper on the floor, and they draw a circle around you. And in my mind today, I would say it was conjuring up spirits, but that's not what they were doing. They were actually purging out the old lump. That's this verse that they would use, purging the old lump. And they were purging out. I guess they were bringing sin up. And I saw people doing things, you know. So for somebody who doesn't understand that, I didn't understand that stuff. It actually frightened me as a kid. I got frightened. Anytime I heard the piano start going, because we couldn't afford organ back then, and once I heard the piano going, and the people started clapping real fast and aggressive, I was like, oh, shucks, here it comes. Here it comes. And I was a little fella, but I knew it's getting ready to happen. And here they go. Oh, here you go. And they start that stuff all the way from the back, and somebody run up to the front, and next thing you know, it looked like it was a riot in the church, because we didn't have chairs that were connected. We had them chairs that were disconnected, and by the time those chairs were everywhere. Folk were everywhere. Somebody's over here, somebody's over there, chairs are over here, and it was like, after service over, we had to put the church back together again. That was some scary stuff. We did it, but no one explained it. No one explained what was going on. Because I was brought up in, Bishop would remember for the time that he was in Koji, I was in the do as you're told church. You don't get the right to ask questions. You have to just do what was told, and if you didn't, you were in disobedience. Listen to this. They didn't follow that up with the fact that we were disobedient to them, but they left it as if you were being disobedient to God. I wasn't disobedient to God. I needed understanding. Tell me, what are we doing? So that's why growing up, the rebellious spirit came, was what they would call it. I wanted to get away from church and church people. I didn't want to have nothing to do with any one of you. I was scared of you. I wanted to go my own way. Why? Because I didn't have understanding. And this is the problem that we fall into, because whenever Satan captures us in a place of discord, in a place of nebulous thinking, where we're uncertain, insecure, and not clear on what we believe, we're in a vulnerable place. Because now we are open almost to anything. We are open to almost anything that comes our way. We're open to things that we would otherwise have we been taught, we would have known how to stay away from. We would have known how to avoid. We would have known how to put in context. We don't. So because of that, here we start this whole concept. It was Nietzsche, the philosopher Nietzsche, who started the teaching of the God is dead theory. Nietzsche was the one who started that. And Nietzsche said, because the fact is that now that God is dead, somewhere back in the 60s, maybe 70s or so, or early 60s, 50s, somewhere thereabout, he began to teach this new philosophy. Here's what he did when he began to teach this philosophy that went across the world. It destabilized our culture, our society. Because here was his argument. If God is dead, then you no longer have to be structured by a people who believe in a God that really never existed in the first place. Now that I don't believe in God, I am free to live my life any way I want to. Because if there's no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no angels, there's no demons. And the only thing that the Bible did to our society and culture was constrict us into a form of thinking that caused us all to believe the same thing so that we could be controlled. Now I've released you from that. God is dead. There's no such thing as God. You're free now. And for those that adapted that view and held on to that philosophical thinking, they began to live just like that. There is no God. I don't have to be controlled by it. Paul even said, if some say that Christ has returned, if some say Christ is not going to return, and some have believed, I'm misquoting, but I'm making out the word point. He said, here's the point that I'm making. If Christ has not returned, will not return, then we are all men most miserable. Because the question is, if I don't believe in God, if there's no God to believe in, what do I do with my life now? I've invested 40, 50, 60, 70 years of my life believing that there was a God. And now you're telling me he doesn't exist? So what am I supposed to do now? Why even bother go to church anymore? I want all my money back. I gave you an offering. The devil knows how to deceive us. Even more so, he knows how to destabilize us. The devil may be stupid, but he's not an idiot. He knows how to find your place. Whatever amount of time, the Bible never told us. It didn't ever tell us how long it took Satan to deceive Eve. It never told us how long that whole process took. Could have been months, weeks, and years. We don't know. But what we do know is that he worked on her long enough to get her to start rationalizing, reasoning in her mind what God had already said in light of what the devil was telling her, or what Satan was telling her was the practical truth. And so the Bible says she ended up eating the fruit. What am I saying to you? I'm saying the very same thing with you. I'm never going to listen to the devil. The devil's never going to, okay, you don't know the devil that well. Can I also tell you, you have no control over the devil. I know you loose and bind him and all that kind of stuff. Maybe. But I won't get in trouble with anybody, but maybe. But I tell you what, outside of the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, he's not bound to listen to you. I'm binding the devil. He's coming out. The devil said, he's binding me. I ain't going nowhere. That's right. Because the idea, and you've seen evidence in the scriptures to say so. They tried to rebuke the devil. Okay, Paul, I know. Jesus, I know. Who are you? You have no power and authority over me. You have no authority over me. So I don't care how much you conjure up spirits and gather into the fellowship hall and believe that for the most part we're going to tell the devil what to do. No. The devil only acknowledges the power and the power and the fellowship and the spirit of God in truth. That's what he reacts to. The Bible says at the sound of his name, demons tremble. Not at our name, but at the sound of his name, demons tremble. I say all those things because, again, these are methodologies that are used to question as to why you do what you do. One of the ways that Nation of Islam was able to destabilize a lot of Christians in the early 50s and 60s was because we couldn't give an answer to the question of why do we serve a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus? When you're not strong in your faith, when you don't understand the course of your faith, when you have not studied to show yourself approved unto God, you will be embarrassed. The argument is not that Jesus is blonde and blue-eyed. That's not the issue. Why? Because it's not true. The question is, did Jesus live? Yes, he did. I'm not going to get caught up in aesthetics. I don't care what color you give him. Every culture has a different view of what Jesus looks like. None of us know what he looks like because we've never seen him. The man lived 2,000 years ago. Why am I going to let you get me into such a silly argument and then make me begin to doubt the faith and the God that I serve because I don't have an answer for you? Listen to me, saints. Because you don't have an answer does not mean that there is not an answer. Someone catches you in a slip like that or any type of situation like that, what you immediately let them know is then don't be fearful because there's no reason to be fearful of it. I'll get back to you on that. There's no shame in that.
Amen. Amen.
I'll get back to you on that. I'm not prepared to answer that question right now. But if you give me a week or so, when I see you again, I'll have an answer for you. That's what we're called to do. This is the culture that we're in, where we've made everything relative to the situation. Another term used is what you may be familiar with is something called situational ethics. Situational ethics allows you to be able to deal with a circumstance in its given presentation based on how it applies to you. Johnny doesn't want to eat his food right now. It's 8 o'clock at night. Johnny's got to go to bed. But I don't want to eat. Okay, then don't make him eat. Let him go to bed. Now Johnny's going to bed hungry. Why didn't you make that boy eat his food? Well, because I don't want to make him do anything he doesn't want to do. Forgive me, but I did read a verse in the scriptures. I could be wrong. Train up a child in the way he should go. There was another verse that I don't know. Johnny not eating may very well be foolishness, and there's a verse for that, because foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction. My father, I'm bigger than my father now, but I promise you, he taught me the power of the belt. He taught us the power of the belt. There's Vincent over there. He taught us the power of the belt. He was so good with the belt, he could beat 3 of us at one time. Man, dude had skills, man. He had skills. Every one of us could get fair whacks, and we crawling and climbing. But we're in a culture now that basically says live and let live. Why? Because there are no absolutes any longer. It's based on my perception. Now, here's where it becomes dangerous. Because as it makes its way from the culture to the church, and we're trying to teach you in the church who Jesus is, who God is, and what relevance he has in your life, someone will come and undermine that and primarily tell you, first and foremost, God doesn't exist. Secondly, if Jesus was here, he was just a normal man. There was nothing unique about him. Islam says that he was a prophet. Matter of fact, he was a good prophet, but he was not the prophet. So what happens is that we began to minimize him. And when we begin to minimize him, the worst thing that can happen in our faith is to take away the authority of who Christ is in our lives. Because if you remove the power and the quality and the relationship that we share with Jesus Christ, then we cannot have a relationship with the Father. No man can come to the Father but through me. So we really have an issue in front of us. And the issue essentially is that I don't mind getting my shout on, as they use it today, and say it this way. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point in time, my brothers and sisters, you've got to open the book, take paper and pen. And you've got to struggle with the scriptures. You have to struggle with the scriptures. And you're not going to get it all in one time. It takes years of study. And even after years of study, you'll still go back and read something and have no understanding or see it in a new light. So on that note, we basically talked about relatively in these whole things. And this is where I was dealing with all of these things that I dealt with. So let me just share some things with you real quickly as we go to the point of closing this out. Closing this out because I just want to show you some things with regards to the difficulties. Read the other portions, but go back over to page 6 with me. And I want to deal with the evil and the destructive effects of relativism. I just want to go there with you. Because essentially what I want you to understand is that relativism is a dangerous philosophy in theology that causes us essentially to find ourselves frustrated by things we don't know, we don't understand, maybe even embarrassed by it to deal with and cope with. But there are answers. The Bible has answers. You know why the Bible has answers? Because God made us. And he gave us his word so that we can understand. I don't quote him often, but Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe, used this as a point of reference. He used the Bible as the manufacturer's manual. I like the concept because what happens is that's how we get to know God. And the closest we can get to knowing how he thinks. So when we study his word, we know what he thinks and how he thinks about us, even to the level of expectation. Because some people don't believe that God really cares about them. I can't figure it out. 7 to 8 billion people on the planet. Some way we know. Last week we were leaving here, my brother gave me he didn't even realize he was teaching me. But it proves in this point of reference. We were going home last week, and I asked the question as I was looking at it, and I said, how does the GPS work? Does the GPS in the car work in the sense that are we following it, or is it following us? It's following us. And the reason why is because once we tag into the system, it locks on to wherever we are. And once it locks on to wherever we are, it begins to tell us where we should go. If there's 50,000, if there's 200,000 cars on the road, and every one of us are using GPS, the satellite locks onto every individual car and tells every car where they want to go. Somebody said, what's that got to do with God? I'm so glad you asked. Because the same application is made to a greater degree. And the application that is applied in this context is that he knows, Job said it, he knows the way that I take. He GPS's me. How does that happen? Happens one way. I got to connect through Jesus Christ. Jesus said, when you connect with me, I'm going to send you the comforter. Because when he comes, I'm going to let him lead you and guide you. And that's what we're doing right now. We should be led by his spirit. We should be following. Let the GPS work on me. And that's what we're called to do. So when we're in a world such as now, where someone will tell you, there's no God leading you. There's no spirit guiding you. Devil, you are a liar. I can't buy into that. Because that doesn't make practical sense. It doesn't make practical sense. It doesn't make systematic sense. Why? Because I do not first and foremost believe that God, that if you don't believe in God, the question always has to come back to the beginning. How did the world start? You got to always bring it back to the beginning. How did the world start? Okay, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'll tell you this is my view. Somebody said there was a Big Bang. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the Big Bang. Why? Because maybe God orchestrated the Big Bang. It didn't. The Bible didn't tell us how he put the world together. He told us how he fixed it up. When we're introduced in Genesis 1, we're introduced to a world that is in chaos. It never told us how it came together. It just told us how he put it into order. So I don't have a problem with the Big Bang Theory. Let's go with that. So the Big Bang Theory, what happened? It all came together. By itself? Yeah. Okay. I don't know about that, but okay, let's go with it. Well, what about everything else that happened in this life? How did the birds begin to fly? Let's just go ahead and go right to the point. Darwin said we came from apes and monkeys. Okay, why don't we see that happen in a day? I've seen some folk very close. But I still have not seen the transition occur. If anybody has, please let me know. So it was a theory that Darwin instituted. But here's the danger. The theory became a fact. It became a fact because people wanted to believe it. Because they wanted to dispel the reality of God. I need to be able to negate the reality of God. So I will use this methodology to determine what makes sense in a world that needs order. Ontologically is another word that is used with regards to the structure and order and how things are put together. Things don't happen by themselves. You know, most of us who studied this ontology recognize with ontological argument, recognize that something as simple as how did a watch get put together? Look at a watch and all of its intricacies. Well, how did that happen? Are you telling me it happened all by itself? Have you ever looked inside a watch before? Have you ever seen what goes on inside there? And you're telling me that one day, just through a span of time, all of these elements came together and found themselves a way to fix themselves up and to make them formulate this mechanism for time, which we call watches today? Okay, what are you drinking? That doesn't even make sense. So we have to recognize there must have been a mastermind behind the plan. And we know who he is. Because Genesis 1 told us right off the fact. And if you ever want to appreciate the authority and the audacity of the God we serve, just keep reading Genesis 1 over and over. Listen to what it says. In the beginning, God, stop. Notice what just happened. It made a proclamation and it did not ask you to agree. The opening of the book said, in the beginning, God. Now, what you going to do with that, Mr. Atheist? What you going to do with the fact that the Bible says the #1 best-selling book in the world still present today? What are you going to do with the book that said, in the beginning, God? And then it went on to tell you about his creative abilities. But you have to struggle with the fact that God is. You can't get past that. I don't care what your theology is. I don't care what your philosophical thinking is. I don't care what your belief system is. You can't get past the fact that he identified himself. And I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just telling you what is. How do I know my parents are mine? Because in the beginning I saw them. They may not be my natural parents, but as far as I'm concerned, they're my parents. Because they're the only ones I know. God was the only one through all the world's religions that identified himself as the creator. The only one out of all of the world's religions. He identified himself. So here we go, real quickly. And again, like I said, time is far spent. But the destructive nature of relativism in our world, and I definitely, like I said, I wanted you to read through this. But here's 7 things I want to try to get through very quickly. And I won't read them all, I'll read them all, but I won't read through everything. The destructive nature of relativism, it is an evil. It's an evil and it's destructive because it unsettles people. It unsettles the faith. And primarily at this point, we're focusing solely on the people of God. Because those are the only ones who are battling with it. Those are the only ones from a religious perspective. Listen to this. First point is relativism commits treason. It causes you to create, in and of itself, commits treason and will lead you down a treasonous way. It is a revolt against the objective reality of God. When I begin to deal with relativism, I'm beginning to argue the reality of whether God actually exists or not. Paul said to one of the group, he said, you did run well. What did hinder you? What got in your way? You can speak to yourself. You started out on fire when you got saved. That's the language we talk. That's our language. We started out on fire. What cooled you off? What cooled you down? I can tell you right off the bat. Life. Because you found out everybody is saying hallelujah. Did you speak truth? Found out that every preacher that was good wasn't honest and pure. you found out a lot of things that are real to life. You got home problems. You got job problems. All of that stuff is pressure that weighs down on you. Has a way of fighting. And that's why I argue many times over when people come to church and they're having these real hallelujah moments. It's more cathartic than it is spiritual. I'm trying to release some pressure on me. It's not even really about me trying to get next to God. I'm trying to get past that boss that got on my nerves today. I'm trying to deal with that wife or that husband that's just giving me such a hard way to go. I'm just trying to deal with those kids that just won't listen. And this stuff weighs on me. So when I come and the music starts going and the tambourines start clapping and the singers start lifting their voices, and when the praise goes up, my praise is for freedom from what I'm dealing with. But here's something you got to realize. And some people may want to argue this point, and I'm open to the argument. Doesn't praise belong to the Lord? So shouldn't I be praising God in spite of what I'm going through? In spite of the troubles at home and abroad, shouldn't I be praising God because He is God? Because through all the hell I went through, He still allowed me to come here? The writer didn't say this an accident. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. God knows that you've been through stuff. But don't get tricked by the world's value system that's going to try to rob you of giving Him the glory that He desires. He didn't say praise me only when you feel like it. Relativism revolts against objective reality. James said it this way. James speaks in this context. He said when we see the dynamics in the second paragraph, when we see the dynamics of treason in relationship to God's law, that's what we're looking at. Listen to this. Whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become accountable for all of it. Why is the question? For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. The key to God Himself is what we must understand as to how He thinks. God measures all sin equal. I say that with very cautious words, because there are some sins that He called abominable. And there's a certain judgment for certain types of sins. But at the end of the day, John said, for all unrighteousness is sin. The goal of Satan is to get us to be able to deny the reality of who God is and cause us to revolt against that truth. And if we can revolt against that truth, we're one step closer to walking away from the God that we believe. Why? Because it's true for you, but it's not true for me. The God I serve over here at Krishna, the gods that I serve at Krishna are more apt to meet my needs than the God of the Christian. Allah is more apt to meet the needs of the Muslim than Christ is to meet the need of the Christian. Why? Because they'll use your circumstances to determine your place, and ultimately if you're not faring to a certain degree, then certainly you must not be in favor with God. That's Job's friends. They spent an unbelievable amount of time trying to get him to confess to something he did not do. Why? Because it appeased their need for satisfaction as to what God does and can do. Because the fact of the matter is, you and I don't know why God does what He does. He does not always give us explanation. And can I dare suggest to you, so don't be upset by it, He doesn't owe you an explanation.
Come on.
All He requires of you is, do you believe in me? I'm not going to tell you why you're going through, but do you trust me? I'm not going to tell you why the loss that you have is real. Yes, it's real, but that's not my concern. My concern is, do you believe in me? Because once I have gravitated and captured and held on to the simplicity of this truth, that God is who He said He is, then everything else in life does not not matter as it relates to my circumstances. Why? Because we said it in our Sunday school classes. He's got the whole world. He got you and me, brother. So James simply said you have to put it all together. Relativism is a pervasive rebellion against the very concept of divine law. The goal of relativism is to get you to walk away from the spiritual truths of God. Number two, relativism cultivates duplicity. Because if I can create in your mind a secondary thought, if I can get you to question everything about God, then I can destabilize your walk with God. I can get you to begin to doubt, which is what was done in the very beginning. Satan created the question in Eve's mind. What did he do? In the basic tenets of the law, he created doubt. If I can get the juror to doubt something, I have a better chance of winning the case if I'm a defendant. The goal of Satan is to cause us to doubt. This is why the Bible calls us to a place of strength in belief. Abraham was prided, if you would, by the fact that he walked by faith. Abraham had no idea what faith was. He had no idea about the God who called him. But yet and still, when he heard the call, he responded to it in faith. And because he responded to it in faith, he became the father of faith, which is another way of saying he became the purpose, the design of which how God wants us to walk in relationship to him. You don't always know. It's not going to always work the way you want it to work. But I guess what? He didn't tell you to do it the way you want. He didn't tell you that if it's working the right way, however you imagine it, that must be okay. Go, Jeremiah, preach to the people. I preached to them hard-headed folk, God. They didn't listen to me. Now I'm done. I ain't preaching no more. I didn't tell you that they were going to respond to you. I told you to preach. And that's the convolution that goes on in many of our minds today in our basic churches today. I don't have a lot of members. You must not be doing something right.
That's not it. That's not it.
I don't have fancy cars. I don't have a beautiful home. Yeah, something's wrong with your faith. One faith teacher's words came back to haunt him even presently today. He said, if you're not preaching God's word, if your church is not full because you're preaching God's word, then you're not preaching God's word. Today his church is maybe 3/4 empty. You know him by name. I won't call it, but I know if I said it, you know exactly who I'm talking about. His church is suffering today, and more to the point of the church suffering, he who one time preached a message of faith that I can get sick whenever I want to get sick, and I can get well whenever I want to get well, himself is on dialysis. Late Gardner Taylor said, he called it pap. I love that word. He said, because when they go around teaching that kind of pap, you hurt people's lives. Because people are willing to follow anything that sounds good. Paul said it this way, they heap unto themselves teachers having itching ears. Tell me what I want to hear, preacher, and I'll give you everything you want. But if you don't preach what I want, I'm going to go find somebody that will. The burden of the true preacher of God is that if he preaches the word and truth, teaches it in truth as the Spirit gives him to teach, the bottom line is that if the people are not responding the way that he believes they should, he will think that he is failing, only in his eyes. Relativism cultivates duplicity. It causes us to begin to think twice. It causes us to go into an uncertainty and insecurity. A system of belief that causes us to not know for sure what we're doing. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Relativism, thirdly, conceals doctrinal defections. One of the most tragic effects of relativism is the fact, this is number 3, one of the most tragic effects of relativism is the effect it has on language. In a culture where truth is esteemed as something objective and external to ourselves that we should pursue and embrace and cherish and employ for the good of the people, language holds the honorable place of expressing and carrying and transmitting that precious cargo of truth. In fact, a person's use of language is assessed on the basis of whether it corresponds to truth and beauty and the reality he expresses. I'll give it to you in a nutshell. What I just said before. If I'm not saying what you like, you will reject it. But the hardship of the scriptures, when we begin to study all of the prophets of the Old Testament and the New Testament, you will find that in every instance where they preached, there was rarely anybody that enjoyed their preaching. Right. Because I'm not here to make you feel good. Now that's foreign to the postmodern church, but that's exactly the mindset we come into the building today. On any given day. Man, I'm ready to have a good time today. Good time today. Good time today. I'm coming here because I feel good. I want to feel good when I leave here today. Can we explore the possibility that God is not interested in the sensitivity of your emotions to the extent of making you feel good? Is it possible that he wants you to sit down, close your mouth, and open your ears? Is it possible that he put a burdenless word into the mouth of the prophet to speak to the people, to make them aware of what directions they are veering off in? Those are the kind of messages that don't make you feel good. They don't make you feel good. Because those are the kind of messages that make you say, I don't know if this is church for me. But if you're a sincere believer, searching God's word and seeking out his truth, you shall know the truth. And the truth will make you free. I'm finished. You all read the rest of this, all right? What are you saying, Bishop? I stop. Even better. I stop. I am not finished. God bless you all.
I thank God for speaking to us. I pray that you, believing hearts, listen to what the Lord said to us tonight. I'm so glad these last few weeks I haven't called my brother to talk to him at all. Sunday, our exit was on believing God. Some of you remember the scripture that I linked to. I linked you to my scripture, Psalm 42:11. At 5, you go to Psalm 43 and see the same words. But 11 belongs to me. Mm-hmm. Why art thou disquieted within me? Huh? Why are you so upset? Hope thou in God. And if our hope is in God, our situations won't affect our disposition. Amen. But because I'm hoping in God, no matter what's happening around me, I'm living by his word and his promises. And he's promised to get me out of this. No matter how I hurt right now, God will do what he said he will do. He can do what he says he can do. And you've got to believe it. My brother is speaking so directly to where we're living. If people can dispel God, they don't have to listen to his word. Einstein was one who did not believe in God until the latter part of his life. And he had to say, there had to be a moral lawgiver. And if you can do away with God, who is your moral lawgiver? If there's no moral lawgiver, there's no moral law. I beat myself up all week asking God, did I do a wrong thing last Tuesday night? Before I introduced the preacher, I started talking about the Pride parade they had in New York. I had to stop and think, what are they talking about? A gender party. And somebody had to explain to me. Someone was coming out of the closet and saying they're not who folks thought they were. They weren't to be another gender. And before I could introduce the preacher, I saw the young man stand up, put on his backpack and leave. And I said, maybe I should have kept my mouth shut and he would have heard the preaching. Thank you, Elder Audrey, for telling me tonight that that wasn't a young man. He was just dressed like it because he was in a ladies' room before service. This is the day, this is the hour we live in. Huh? There was a church service and the young man saw a young lady sit through the whole service, thought she was kind of cute, and was going, well, I'll tell you the church, 815 Springfield Avenue. And when she came the next time, he was purpose to talk to her, only to find out it was a young man with a dress, a wig, and all the lookalikes of a young lady. So you got to change what you believe people say. They used to say, if it walk like a duck, if it quack like a duck, it's a duck. Not today. You tell that chicken to take the duck clothes off and